And then there were four down to the final four in the NFL. It is conference championship weekend. We have been here with you every single week from the NFL season. We were here with you probably about a month before as we did individual conference preview, individual division previews. We did a full fantasy football preview over the last 3 years. Eric has talked about every single football game throughout the regular season and the playoffs with us right here on That's What G Said podcast. And as we get into the final four, we could have had the Jags or the Giants get into this mix, and they would have been a little bit of an outlier. If the Cowboys or the Bills would have made it, or both of them, those probably would have been the, considered in this group of the upper tier. Most of the year, there was kind of like a tier of 6 teams, Eric. The 2 that lost last week, the Cowboys and the Bills, and then the 4 we have. I mean, the 4 teams that we have, these are 4 of the top 6 teams in regular season point differential, 4 of the top 6 in offensive EPA, 4 of the top 6 in DVOA. These are 4 legitimate football teams that are here. And whoever you like or don't like a little bit more than the other, these all had pretty good years and are deserving to be here based on like how they've earned their way.
Oh yeah, for sure. With everything, each team has had a little bit of a hiccup, a little bit of adversity they've had to overcome, have it be at the beginning, middle, or end of the season.
Yep, wasn't perfect for any of these teams. No.
Yeah, they got some stuff going on. Couple quick thoughts about last week. I don't understand where Travis Etienne was in the fourth quarter. It was kind of weird to me where he wasn't involved in the game at all. He wasn't even on the field. And if you spend a first-round draft pick on him, he needs to be on the field. You and I have talked about it a lot that we don't think he's an every down back. And the fact he wasn't there kind of proves that he wasn't an every down back when they needed him out there. I don't know if he was tired. I don't know if he was hurt. I've searched on Twitter. I've got 2 Jags beat reporters I look on. I couldn't find anything. And with how the NFL is and how your window is, you never know if it's going to close. I mean, you have Chad Henne come in there and you allow a 98-yard drive. It's like the Jaguars defense never practiced defending against Travis Kelce.
Well, and
really weird to me. Like
you got to remember too, because it's not always as easy as, oh, you make it there, and then the next year you're just going to make it farther. Yeah. Think about the Browns a few years ago, right? When the Browns were there against the Chiefs, and it felt like the Browns had that opportunity when Patrick Mahomes got hurt. And Chad Henne came in at the end of the game, and he had to make that one play because otherwise it felt like the Browns were going to win that game. They had a lot of momentum, and we all thought they were going to continue to improve. And I'm not saying that the Browns and the Jags are comparable, but that Browns team had a really good roster too, right? They had a lot of positives moving forward. So it doesn't automatically mean you're just going to be right back there because, again, this is a tough AFC, but look at this year in particular for Jacksonville. They may have caught a Chargers team that spit out a huge lead. Then they catch a Kansas City team where your starting quarterback, Mahomes, probably the best football player on the planet, gets hurt before the half, and he's hobbling around in the second half. And you're not even really able to pressure him all that much or sack him or hit him when he's barely able to move out there. And then the other team that you would have played is a Cincinnati team that, yes, they did look extremely impressive, but is it going to surprise you if either this week or if they win and get to the Super Bowl, Cincinnati's offensive line just has one of those games where they're just miserable because we know what they're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, and
that could be there.
That could be there. And it was kind of like
might have been a nice season for
your window can close, and I'm going to say this. Everyone wants to anoint Trevor Lawrence. He had one bad season, one good season. That first round of that playoff game, he had one bad half, one good half, and he was average at best against Kansas City. So you know what I mean? Like, we really don't know what we got in him yet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
where they're in a good spot is that as of right now, that division looks like it's going to be a really weak division for the next few years. So that they may be in a good spot where they just don't have to be incredible, but they sort of by process of elimination could be just a 9 or 10 win-ish team because the rest of that division isn't great. But you're right. We're not sure if they're really an AFC powerhouse quite yet. We do know that we have 2 of the AFC powerhouses on Sunday night. So both games this week
Can I
are
go
on
off on the
Sunday.
Bills real quick? I'm sorry. I need
No,
to go
no,
off.
we got to go off on the coaching. They were so unprepared for that game. No adjustments. Didn't try to change anything whatsoever. It was like you got punched in the mouth, and they just like they got thrown into a boxing match, got punched, and like they weren't expecting to get punched. It was hilarious.
This is the thing that upsets me. I have a couple things that upsets me. Number one, the only thing the media is talking about is Stefon Diggs being upset on the sidelines. To me, it looked like Stefon Diggs was the only person that cared. That's how it came off to me. Like he was the only person that was showing some emotion, and he's getting blasted for what? Caring that you want to win, and no one else really does.
Did you see what he posted on social media after?
No.
Right? Like recently, because somebody was like you said, they were like making fun of him or saying, "Oh, Diggs getting out of control." He said exactly what you said. I'm sorry that I care so much. I'm not going to tolerate what we were doing out there. We can be better. I know we can. I just want more. It wasn't even like a give me the ball thing.
No,
he was just frustrated overall.
And then my two talking points last week when I came in and I gave out the Bengals were how the Bengals have given up in 10 weeks, huge sample size, the fourth most passing yards and the fourth rate of explosive plays. The second play of the game, or it was either the second or third play, Diggs went deep and on a stop and go. Allen barely overthrew him. And if he hits that, he's gone. They did not take another shot downfield until that third and short in the fourth quarter, which absolutely blew my mind. I don't understand why you're not going deep, extending it, because all they were doing, everything was underneath, and they're just forcing them to go in that zone. Made zero sense to me. I know Ken Dorsey is getting a lot of attention about being a coach, possibly going to Carolina or wherever, but I'm saying it right now. All Ken Dorsey has shown us in his 1 year of calling plays is he took Josh Allen and that Bills offense and it took a step backwards. The end of last season, they started running the ball 20 times a game with Singletary, Zach Moss, Duke Johnson. Those three were getting 20 rushes a game. And that's after that loss against it was that cold game where
the Patriots. The Patriots, where they couldn't run the ball at all. Yeah.
Where was that?
And then even the beginning of the year, think about the first game of the year, how crisp and smooth they looked against the Rams. Like they looked like they were already in midseason form, just flying on all cylinders, combination of just when other people adjust to you, not adjusting back. Like you were saying here, like knowing what you needed to do, you had a sample size there and you just didn't go to it. You and I were texting about it. It was so frustrating.
It was funny because like I was texting you. I have two scouts who I texted 5 scouts, 2 replied, and I know a couple coaches in the league and I was texting them, and it just, everyone was on the same page with how poor of a coaching job it was. They didn't understand what they were doing. And then Leslie Frazier. How in the world do you not try to create pressure more often when there's 3 out of 5 starting offensive linemen going on? And
the guys that were in were awful. Like their careers leading into this were not good players. They were not graded well. And honestly, they even when you dive into it, they still weren't fantastic last week. They just sort of let them get away with it. I think
the thing is this is like on a field that has no snow, no ice, it levels out. But when there's snow and ice and the offense knows where you're going and the defense doesn't, offensive line has a huge advantage, just like the skill players, because they know where everything is going to break. They're going to, you know what I mean?
You cut, and when it's harder to defend someone when
when you're pass rushing with only 4 on 5 and you expect to generate that pressure, that doesn't make any sense. Cincinnati brought more pressure than the Buffalo Bills did. Everyone wants to know. One of the direct quotes I got from the scouts was this: people want to know why Leslie Frazier doesn't have a job. It's this game. Because he made 0 adjustments. He stayed in what he was comfortable in. He took 0 risks. He was playing cover 2 with 2 high safeties or nickel defense the whole game. He was sitting back.
and
I have
Burrow just
never
picked him
seen
apart. He just picked him apart.
Yeah,
Like
I have
a
never.
good quarterback will do that to you, and they'll just pick you apart. They'll take exactly what you're going to give them, and all of the little short stuff became long stuff because of the tackling issues in the snow.
And like it's third and short, okay? And they finally brought pressure, and your DB is playing 8 yards off Jamal Chase. What world are we living in? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was just one of a weird game plan. And I'll be honest, like if I'm Buffalo right now, and I said this on my show, I'm basically keeping the same rosters. Yeah, do I want to add a couple people on the defensive line, maybe get a better guard? Yeah, of course. But the two people I'm calling Vic Fangio, and I'm saying, hey, you have the keys to that defense.
I agree.
And then on offense, few people realize this. My boy, the winningest Lions coach in the history of Detroit Lions football, Jim Caldwell bought a playbook to the Chicago Bears. And he was like, here, this is what I'm going to do with Justin Fields. You're telling me he wouldn't be able to design something new to go with Josh Allen's strengths? And he's already proven he can win with Stafford, proven he can win with Peyton. I would give him the offense. I mean, that guy is a huge offensive genius. I mean, that like if I'm Buffalo, those are my two hires. But if they come back and they're rolling out Dorsey and they're rolling out God,
Frazier.
It's the same thing. And I heard the best analogy ever to it. And you know what? This is going to be a shot on your boys, and I'm sorry. Someone I heard compared the Buffalo Bills to Allen Robinson. All the hype in the world preseason, but when the lights came on, they disappeared.
Yeah, no, Allen Robinson had a really poor year this year. And the thing about the Bills is you cannot just run it back exactly because you weren't close enough this year. Like coming off of last year, that heartbreaking loss against Kansas City, like it's a little bit different. You cannot come right back after you got your asses kicked like that. That wasn't a game that you just barely got beat. And like you said, this wasn't one player or two. These are some just overall scheme way of thinking changes that need to be made in their room. And we'll see if the Bills can do that. Eric and I will try to keep you updated throughout the offseason too. We'll do an NFL draft pod. And then if there are any like really big news or maybe every now and then once some of the coaching changes or player movement, free agency stuff, we'll keep you updated on all of that. I know Eric does a really good job on his shows, always keeping you updated on everything going on in the world of football. Also, speaking of the world of football, 2 games for us to dive into. Let's talk 49ers, Eagles. Eric, we're looking at the lines over at Betfred Sportsbook. Both of these lines moved a little bit right from opening. Philly opened at -1.5 and has jumped to about 2.5 here. On the other side, this number has danced back and forth. We're looking at Betfred. Other places, though, actually have the Bengals favored now. Yeah. It's moved from Kansas City, about a 1.5 favorite, to about Cincinnati.
That one actually opened up Bengals getting 3.
And it's gone up.
And then with the Mahomes news, obviously.
Yeah, people didn't know what to do. It kind of settled around a pick'em because that's sort of the safest place to be until for sure we knew what was going to happen with Mahomes. Because if Mahomes wasn't playing, this would be a higher Bengals number for sure. If Mahomes was playing and he was 100% healthy, it would probably be closer to Chiefs -3. So it's kind of in that pick'em range right now because it's sort of safe. As we record a few days out on Wednesday night.
And Mahomes practiced, and
he looked pretty good. When I saw him, he looked good in what I saw in practice. Like he looked healthy. I mean, obviously he's not trying to go out there and limp around because he doesn't want everyone to see that. But like the fact that he's walking around out there is a positive thing because I thought he might be in a situation where he's not even on his feet all week.
I mean, if this was something serious,
he wouldn't be walking right now at all out there.
Standing next to what's his face on the sideline.
Yes, absolutely. So first up, 49ers and the Eagles. Eagles 2.5-point favorite in this one. And we have the over-under 46.5. San Francisco 15-4 straight up, 13-6 against the spread. The Eagles 15-3 straight up, 9-9 against the spread. So I did punch this one right off the bat on the opener at when I saw it was Eagles -1.5, just because I thought this number could probably tick up to the Eagles -3 or so. So I just wanted to get ahead of the number there. 12 straight wins for the 49ers, the longest win streak in franchise history. They're tied for their longest win streak. The only other time they won 12 in a row, that 12th win was a Super Bowl win. So if they win their next two, it'll be a 14-game winning streak and a Super Bowl win, which would be the longest in history. Just real quick, what the hell was Dallas doing on that final play of the game? I know we've spent.
This is my thought process. Okay, like, look, I understand you want to have like as many athletes on the field, and that's why Zeke was there, you know, to get another like athlete and everything there. But why not have that be Dalton Schultz?
You know somebody that's more of a blocker. Like, you're right, a tight end. They just teed off on him. They sent out 10 skill position players, which is actually not a bad idea. If you know you're just going to have laterals, like, you really don't need linemen because there's not really much blocking. But you need to at least set a couple guys up so they could get in the way. You know what I mean? And not have just a clear run through on Zeke and at Dak, because all they were able to do was complete like a 10-yard pass and then no laterals. It was.
And also, like, another thing, like, and I'm not using this as an excuse.
No, because let me say, the odds of them getting that play was like 1%. But the issue isn't with them getting it. It's just that, like, that play was sent out there by multiple coaches, like an offensive coordinator, a quarterback's coach, like a head coach, all looked at that play and said, yes, with our season on the line, we have one more shot. This is what we want to do.
Well, like, and here's the thing with the Cowboys. Like, props to Kerben. Like, for those that don't know, Kerben was in the USFL, and he was the MVP of the USFL. Then he gets signed with the Cowboys, and he was, like, their return guy. Like, the amount of football that kid has played this calendar year is an absurd amount.
He got a lot of miles on him.
In terms of the Cowboys, look, you look at it like this. They missed an extra point with Meyer. Dak drove him down, bad pass, intercepted. That probably would have been 3. 49ers drove down and scored. And, you know, that's 7 points right there, and that's basically the game.
Both turnovers and the extra point are the 7 right there.
You've talked about live betting before. But let's be honest, like, with how big of a part Pollard plays in that offense and how he's kind of like, I don't like the short to medium, like, playmaker, the guy that can get to the outside, the guy in the backfield that can catch a pass. We kind of knew it was going to be an uphill battle for the Cowboys to cover the number when he went out.
It was those two, it was like back-to-back plays. He got hurt, and then the next play, Dak threw that interception when they were driving, and it was like, oh my gosh, it really felt like it was going to be tough for Dallas after that.
Windows closed fast, and, like, if you look at the Cowboys roster, you know, you got this monster contract by Zeke. Do they get him to reschedule, like, resign, like, restructure?
Dak's cap hit is huge next year too.
Dak, offensive line, they have some free agents, defensive free agents, and Quinn has kind of shown he deserves another shot being a head coach, and I'm sure he'll get it.
He had a great game.
But if
he's brought in as a head coach, he has done a good job getting offensive coordinators. Like, he's had pretty good offensive coordinators through his years. Like, he's found good offensive minds.
And he could take more with him. He could take Kellen Moore with him. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? So Cowboys, this could have been their shot, because for what they had with that defense with Parsons and Lawrence.
They were playing a rookie third string, 7th round quarterback. They dropped 2 or 3 interceptions in this game. Like,
have to be able to, you know, get it. And that's, I don't know. Like, it's
I mean, San Francisco scored 19 points on like 6 gift points from you that they scored off of turnovers. Your defense outplayed them and really shut them down. All you needed was Dak to not make bad mistakes. And what was really frustrating was the San Francisco defense is very good. They put pressure on you, and then it makes you uncomfortable. That's an absolute fact. But the specific plays that Dak made that were poor decisions were not even the result of pressure. They were just bad decisions. It was like, just don't make that throw. Just don't make that throw. He had like 5 of them in the game. Pro Football Focus said that he only had 2. Honestly, they were kind to him. When I was watching that game back, there were 5 like turnover-worthy plays that he had. There could have been a couple more interceptions.
Diggs dropped an interception too.
Diggs dropped. Well, Purdy probably had 3. Dak probably had 5 overall. And then you got McCarthy's decisions. 4th and 5 at the San Francisco 40-yard line, and they punt the ball. Why? They give the ball to San Francisco, and the 49ers go drive the field and get the go-ahead touchdown. And then again, trailing by 7 with 2 minutes left to go, Dallas punts. They didn't even know if they were going to get the ball back. They got lucky to get the ball back, and we talked about the goofy play they had at the end. Even weird things like, so Robbie Gould on that kick return, the Dallas returner runs into him. Yeah. Like he runs right into the kicker. If he just cuts to the outside, he's gone.
Yep.
Gould was like the only way he doesn't score a touchdown there is by running into the kicker. How about this stat? In the entire NFL regular season this year, there were only 23 solo tackles by kickers or punters on returns. That means one play like this every 12 games happened.
I mean, or it could just be one of my good friends is Robbie Gould's personal trainer, and Gould was just being an athlete right there.
Yeah, look at that.
You know what I mean?
Look at Gould turning into it right there. Well done. So good stuff there. And, that defense was fantastic for Dallas. Both defenses were good. And even, like you said, even Dallas was having some success running the ball early, but then the injury to Pollard, they took the best playmaker from the game. Out of all 9 quarterbacks that took snaps last week, Dak was graded dead last. He was miserable. We talked about the Pro Football Focus rankings for both of them. How about for Purdy? When they got close in the 40 and in, he was only 4 of 12 for 25 yards and a sack. And for the defense, they had the Dallas defense had 17 combined pressures on the quarterback. Lamb had 10 catches for 117 yards. It seemed like he was open all games. Like the things that you can beat San Francisco, Dallas was doing. It just came down to those turnovers and poor execution. And honestly, it wasn't even like Shanahan was fantastic in this game. He made some bad decision-making down the stretch. He gets really tentative and really he's like McVay, and 4th and short, they kick a lot. You think of these guys as these great offensive minds, great play callers and stuff, but when it comes down to 4th and short, or the difference between going forward and kicking, it seems like they always get a little bit tentative and get a little bit nervous. Shanahan's done that the last couple years. There's always 1 or 2 decisions where they could go for it and try to run out the clock or win the game, and they kick it. He trusts his defense, but if you play an offense that is executing, sometimes it's going to hurt you. It didn't with Dallas. They kicked, the 49ers kicked field goals on 4th and 2 and 4th and 4. They also got a 53-yard return on a drive where they got the ball at the Dallas 47-yard line, and they only got 1 yard. They had a 4th and 9 at the Dallas 46. They punted. They were not very smooth offensively. They only scored 19 points in the game, 6 of them directly off Cowboys turnovers. They only had 312 total yards, 5 yards per play, 3.5 yards per rush overall in the game. This is the best defense they've played, and they're going to have to play a defense that's very good again. These are the best 2 defenses they will have played back-to-back. The difference between the Eagles and the Cowboys, Eric, is that not only can the Eagles attack you with a really strong defensive front and put a lot of pressure on you, they have the best secondary in the league, the Eagles. They are excellent against the pass, so they're going to make things a little bit more difficult for the Deebo Samuels of the world. Now, I will give the 49ers a lot of credit because I've picked on them lately, but when they need to, it seems like they always make the right play. They go on the drive at the right time. They go 10 plays, 91 yards, and 6 minutes to break a tie. And following that, they went 13 plays, 64 yards in almost 8 minutes to kick a field goal to go up by 7. But again, little things, right? Like Mitchell steps out of bounds late. That gave the Cowboys a chance to get the ball back. We saw it last week at the end of the half. They kind of had some weird execution. Purdy almost ran out of bounds, and it could have cost them at the end of the half a field goal. I think there was like 1 second left, just like little small things right there. They were in zone coverage quite a bit. It just shows you how bad Dallas was offensively. They were in zone coverage on 94+% of the snaps. Like, they didn't even change things up. They just sit back in zone and Dak can't attack them. He couldn't process things. And that one drive that they had, that one drive that they needed to score the touchdown, that big go-ahead touchdown, that was a drive that came directly after having Dallas punt. You needed 2 defensive penalties. Kittle made the incredible, 3-tip bobble catch. Sometimes it's just your day, it's your game, it's your year. There's a lot of things that are starting to bounce the way of the 49ers right now, and that's tough not to kind of feel. Kittle had all 5 of his targets for 95 yards, 4 first downs, that incredible one-handed catch. 4 of his catches went for 15 yards or more. But this Cowboys offensive line, they actually held San Francisco in check. They only gave up 5 pressures. All of them were hurries on 40 pass blocking snaps. And San Francisco gave up 9 hurries on 33 pass blocking snaps. And this Philly offensive line might be the best offensive line in the league.
So my thing is this, I am in future heaven right here with everything I have going on. I have the Eagles 35 to 1, I believe, to win it all. 35 to 30 to 1. I'm looking at it right now. 30 to 1 to win it all. And I have San Francisco at 14 to 1 to win the AFC. I locked this in at 1.5 and 2.5 for the Eagles. Now, here's my thought process for this. You mentioned the 12-game winning streak for the 49ers. Teams on a 9-game winning streak or more in the championship round, 20% ATS. 1 seeds in the championship in this round, 56% ATS. When they're the favorites, like the Eagles are, that jumps up to 57% ATS. Let's look at the history of this. Rookie quarterbacks in the AFC/NFC championship. Sean King in 1999. For the Buccaneers, they lost 11-6 to the Rams, lost the game, but covered the spread. 2004, Big Ben of the Steelers, lost 41-27 to the Patriots, didn't cover, lost the game. 2008, Joe Flacco of the Ravens, lost the Steelers 23-14, didn't cover the game. Mark Sanchez of the Jets in 2009, lost the Colts 30-17, didn't win the game,
didn't
cover. So 1 and 3, the only one was Sean King, that Bucs team. That was the team where they had Warren Sapp and all those guys on defense.
And that was an 11-6 game.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't we're not using his skills to have covered that game, scoring the 6 points, right?
And, I know you kind of hit the nail on the head. This is the best offensive line that the 49ers have played, and the Eagles are going to be able to win to the point of attack. And because of that, they're going to be able to move the ball on the ground. When they're able to move the ball on the ground, this is going to be able to open up Hurts' RPO. But more importantly, we've all talked about how this is going to be able to give Hurts time to pick apart the defense, namely that secondary. So I really like the Eagles here. I just think this is a good matchup. This is going to be the most hostile matchup that Purdy has played in
Philly, right?
In Philly,
the AFC Championship. Everything about this Eagles team, Eric, and just kind of picking on your point a little bit, is that they feel like they're just a little bit better version of the Cowboys, right? They can do a lot of the same things that Dallas does, but they're more well-rounded even, both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, where Dallas had Lamb, and in this game, they were sort of hurting for not having an Amari Cooper type in there, right? You look at what Philly is going to throw out there with you, and they're going to throw out A.J. Brown, they're going to throw out Devontae Smith, and they're going to throw out Dallas Goedert, who I think is pretty underrated, and a lot of people kind of forget about how good he is. If you want to shift your focus over to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, well, Goddard will hit you. He had 5 catches on 5 targets last week for 58 yards and a really good Pro Football Focus grade. they have a ton of weapons. If you want to try to take those receivers out, well, then Hurts will run a lot more than Dak will. He'll take off. This team is so well balanced that they are very much built to beat the 49ers right now, unless we get like a very good Brock performance. And I just don't know if
need a pretty good Brock performance. Just looking at the 49ers schedule, when they've played a team that was a top 10 DVOA, they're averaging 15 points per game on offense. You look at the game where the defense kind of got moved on. It was a heavy West Coast type offense with the Raiders that game in Las Vegas, and with the Chiefs earlier on. And we've seen like Sirianni's a nutty effing dude. And I'm called a nut too, but sometimes like the smartest people in the room are a little effing nutty. Yep. And he's done this before where he's completely abandoned the RPO and gone heavy West Coast when he sees it. And I wouldn't surprise me if they're going to be able to do that. So I absolutely love the Eagles here. Anything over 3, I'd bet. I also got 2 player props. I like I bet the first player prop. I bet Devontae Smith over 65.5 yards receiving. The weakness of the 49ers slot quarter reward, we've talked about it before, 81% catch rate to opposing wide receivers. 49ers are 6th in yards per target allowed to wide receivers. I expect the Eagles to use Smith, and I expect them to use him heavily in this matchup. You mentioned Dallas. Oh my God, what's his last name? I always call him Rudy Gobert. Goddard. You mentioned him. Wagner, the linebacker, is the best linebacker in coverage. And I was just kind of looking at tight ends against him. All of them generally go under his total. So I really think he's not going to have a big game. I think those targets from the underneath the middle of the field, they're going to be rolled to Devontae Smith. A.J. Brown is a little banged up. Smith has gone over this total in 4 of his last 5 games. In that time span, he's averaging 10.2 targets, 7 receptions a game, and 96.2 yards. I absolutely love Smith here. And if it's a close game, the one thing that we've kind of learned the last 2 seasons when we see these guys that went to college together and they're now playing together in the NFL, when it's a close game, you're going to look to the guy
they lean on each other.
And if this is a close game, I think Hurts is going to go to him. So I absolutely love Devontae Smith over 65.5 yards. The other one, this one's a little risky. This one's a little risky. Now, we still don't know if Maddox is going to be playing for Philadelphia, but even if he is playing, I don't think he's going to be 100%. In games without Maddox this year, the Eagles are allowing 12.7 yards per catch to opposing slot wide receivers at a 72% catch rate. With that being said, just looking at it, Jauan Jennings, he leads the 49ers in percentages lined up in the slot. So you're looking at what the Giants did last week. Ricky James had 10 targets, 51 yards, 7 receptions. I could see them using Jennings against Maddox or Gardner Johnson. So I went with Jauan Jennings. His prop was pretty low. I think it was like 19.5.
Yeah, I was going to say around 20 or so, right?
I did him over 19.5 yards receiving just because, it's that underneath stuff.
Yeah, that could be one catch, honestly.
Yeah,
man.
with how good they are. And we need to remember the one thing, look, what is everyone talking about this week? Everyone is talking about Patrick Mahomes. Does anyone forget about what was going on with McCaffrey, how he had that thing on his calf?
I know. And McCaffrey did not look fantastic last week.
Yeah.
He was banged up.
Mitchell closed the game. If he's out, hypothetically, let's say that. Let's say you can't rely on McCaffrey. Now they're going to start to use Debo in that. Now Jennings is even a bigger factor in the passing game. So, that's a big thing. We're seeing CMC's receiving rushing prop 100.5, maybe throw a little bit under that, because there's this kind of narrative that the Eagles are bad against the run. Well, when you kind of look at it, when Davis, Sue, Quinn, all those guys have been playing.
They've been
actually
good.
really good against the run. So I
Yeah.
think that number, is a little bit more inflated than it should be. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a great game. I think the Eagles are going to get it done. I think they're going to be going to the Super Bowl, and it's kind of like when you see something. Like I remember last year us talking, and you and I were both hyping up the Eagles.
You called this in the middle of last year, and you said they weren't ready. You didn't think they were going to be able to win this year, but this would be a team next year with a couple changes, and that's exactly what they did. Like
they bring in AJ Brown, and you see what it's done to him. And I don't know. I have positions on both teams, but I really hope the Eagles can get it there because I've always liked the city of Philly, and props to Hurts and everything.
I mean, the reason why a lot of people played against Philly last week was, the Giants looked good the week before, but mainly we didn't know how healthy Hurts was or how healthy overall this team was because we hadn't really seen them in the last month or so like a healthy team. And now we got the look that they were healthy. We already know how good they are based on what they've done throughout a lot of the year. We just needed to get another look at them out on the field and to see that they were operating well, and they were. I mean, they ran for 268 yards, 6.1 yards per carry. That was actually the 16th most rushing yards of any team in a playoff game in history. It was the 5th time this year they've run for over 200 yards. The Giants had 206 punting yards and 109 passing yards in that game. They had 100 more yards punting. The defense sacked Jones 5 times. They had 13 quarterback pressures. 3 different defenders had 3+ pressures. On the first drive, Hurts throws a 40-yard pass. So that helped him, I think, get comfortable. You could tell he was a little bit tentative on taking contact, but I heard a few people say, well, yeah, Hurts didn't look like he wanted to take contact. Who the hell does? You know what I mean? Which quarterback is going in there, leaning, bring it on? I don't want my quarterback doing that. So I don't mind that he looked a little like he didn't want to get hit hard. That's fine. I think now after a week, he'll be even healthier. They scored touchdowns on 4 of their first 5 possessions, did the Eagles, and they rattled Daniel Jones. He was under pressure, no open receivers. He made poor decisions. They had 0 explosive plays. They just could not move the ball at all. The Giants opened the game with a turnover on downs because of back-to-back sacks from Jones. Then on the next drive, he throws an interception. Then the next 4 possessions, the Giants go 3 and out, and they gained 21 total yards on 4 possessions. There was one play when it was 14-0 where the Giants actually picked up a first down, but they got a horrible spot. And you just knew that was it right there. It was like one of those live betting things where the Giants didn't get the ball or they didn't get the chance to get that first down. They punted and the Eagles came right back and scored, and that was just over. It was 21-0 and game, set, match. Even in the fourth quarter, they were down 3 touchdowns. It was 4th and 6, and they punted. I was a little disappointed with Brian Daboll in some spots here. They were never going to win this game. They were completely overmatched, but they just didn't seem all that well prepared. They were just a bit shell-shocked. Barkley only had 7 yards on 4 carries in the first half. The offensive line for Philly was awesome. They allowed 0 quarterback pressures in the first half on 17 pass rush snaps. They only allowed 1 quarterback pressure throughout the game on 26 pass blocking snaps. 3.9% pressure rate allowed. That is the second lowest given up by an offensive line in any playoff game in the Pro Football Focus era. It's the only time a team had a lower pressure rate, and the only time in a game in the last, I think, 7 years that a team has allowed less pressure was when the 49ers only had 9 passes that they threw in a game. They only dropped back 9 times, and I think they only allowed pressure on 1 of those 9. That was honestly it. The 31-point margin of victory over the Giants, that's the largest in a playoff game between division rivals since 1970. Let's go Eagles here. And I've talked to some 49ers fans where I don't think the 49ers are a bad football team, but where I felt for a while was that they are a little overvalued because of the schedule they've played along the way. And as you were pointing out, the times that they've stepped up in class, they have not been nearly as dominant. And so now, if the 49ers win these next 2 games, I will be absolutely wrong, and they will have earned it. If you go through the Eagles and then either the Chiefs or the Bengals, you will have faced the best in the league. You will have gotten through the best in the league, and you will definitely be a very deserving Super Bowl winner. But I'm on the Eagles. Let's go Eagles for Eric and me. Anything else here, Eric? I think you're muted.
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, man.
No worries.
I don't know how I got muted, dude. Can you hear me now?
I don't know. No worries. We got you. That's like the first time you've ever done one of these, right?
Who do the 49ers roll out next year?
That's right.
You know, like you just kind of looking at it, and I was talking like on my show with Scott Shapiro about it. Like we both agree, and I'm sure you're going to be the same way. Jimmy G is probably going to get dealt, right?
Yep.
So now you got Purdy and you got Trey Lance. Who do you go with?
Purdy.
Yeah, I kind of feel you have to, just because
he fits this team well. We for all the knocks that we have on him, I'm expecting him to not be able to necessarily execute against a team like Philly. And even if he plays against the Cincinnati or the Chiefs teams we're going to talk about now, their defenses are both decent. Like I think the Chiefs a little bit underrated on the defensive front too, but he's done an incredible job along the way. Now, again, like last week, there were probably 3 passes that he could have had intercepted. And if 2 or 3 of those get intercepted, maybe we're talking about it a little differently and maybe we feel differently. He's had a little bit of luck, but what I do like about the guy is he has a very good makeup. Like he does seem like after he throws a bad pass, he comes right back and it doesn't seem like it bothers him the next time he throws a pass. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem like he brings it with him. And I think some of that is probably the years of starting at Iowa State. That guy probably had to throw a lot of bad passes. Like there were probably a lot of times where he was down in the games, coming back and just trying to lead guys. So I don't think there would be a lot of quarterbacks in his situation where, they just threw one that hit Diggs in the chest and he dropped.
Yeah.
They would probably be a little bit rattled after that. He's not, Mm-hmm. So I'll give them that. And the staff has done a really nice job with him.
Yep.
So, okay, Eric, let's get to the Bengals and the Chiefs. So the Bengals 14-4 straight up, 13-4-1 against the spread. Chiefs 15-3 straight up, 5-12-1 against the spread. And everyone will be talking about the Mahomes ankle, as Eric and I were just a little earlier on in the show. But what I've seen, he looks okay. I mean, I'm if you like the Chiefs, if you're going to back the Chiefs, if you have backed the Chiefs, you feel positive that the guy was out on the field today. And they are saying that this was something like the high ankle sprain he had in 2019 when he played a week after having it. And they're saying, and he said that one was a little bit worse. Again, he's not going to go out there and say, I can barely walk. He doesn't want it to seem that way because he doesn't want to have even more of a target on him. But I love seeing him out there. This is the 5th straight year the Chiefs are hosting the AFC Championship game. They had a dominant first drive last week. They go 83 yards, 12 plays, 6+ minutes for a touchdown. Then the Jags counter. They get a really nice kick return. That's sometimes a problem for the Chiefs, some of the special team stuff. Jags get a 63-yard kick return. It sets them up with a short field. So Jacksonville scores their touchdown. Then it was the next drive when Mahomes got hurt at the end of that drive. He got hurt. Kansas City kicks a field goal. They go up 3. Jacksonville then punts, and Henne has to come in for a drive that starts at their own 2. Chad Henne goes 12 plays, 98 yards in 6 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yep.
And he didn't have to do anything too crazy. He was helped by a couple penalties along the way, but he didn't make any mistakes. He helped extend the lead, and he helped put the Chiefs up by 10. There were 84 drives this year throughout the league that began within a team's own 2-yard line, and only 7 of them ended in touchdowns all year long. And this was the 8th. So Chad Henne, he had one of those touchdowns that ended up being the difference in this game when they ended up winning by 7. So, but you could see, Eric, it kind of reminds me of like being a Laker fan through the years, right? Kobe would miss a game or 2 here or there. And when he would, you would see like Kobe would be out and then Rick Fox and Ori or some of these other guys would all step up and have a fantastic game or two, right? 25 points, whatever. But then they can do that for like 1 or 2 games. But then they sort of come back to who they are. They're only at a certain level. And that was kind of what we were seeing with Henny last week. He can do it for about a drive or two, but then afterwards you start to see him go, okay, there's a reason why this guy has been a backup for the last 4 years. And he did not have a great, record when he started games. He has a ceiling. He can only do a real limited amount of things for you. And Mahomes comes back in the second half. He's kind of limping around. But again, he did what he needed to do. The first couple drives, they didn't do much. Then he leads Kansas City on a 5-play, 29-yard field goal drive. They didn't have to move the ball that much. They just had good field position, and they kicked the 50-yard field goal. And then he leads one more drive to put Kansas City up by 10 with 7 minutes left to go in the game. And that ended up being the difference. But
big shout out to Peterson for kicking that field
covering, man. He covered for you there at the end. That was beautiful.
Big shout out for him, dude.
He's a gambler, man. That was great for you.
Man of the people, dude. He's a man of the people.
Yep. So even with the injury, Jacksonville had 0 sacks. No sacks on Mahomes. The Kansas City blockers were physical. Shout out to McKinnon. I noticed him a couple times actually picking up blocks really nicely and helping out there. They leaned on Kelsey. He had 14 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 targets. He had 7 first downs in that game. And, I don't think a lot of people would realize that the Chiefs were second in the NFL this year in sacks.
That was one of my points I was going to bring up.
Right? They 55. I wouldn't have said that. And last year they were ranked 29th in that metric. So when you think about the offensive line for the Bengals, that's going to be trying again now, second week in a row, to play over their head. They're going to be dealing with some legitimate pass rushers there. Eric, talk to us a little bit more about this matchup.
Again, I got futures going on at both teams. I'm just looking at it like this. You kind of mentioned it. The Chiefs are going to bring a lot more pressure than the Bills did. Jonah Williams, we're still kind of waiting to see. There's rumors going around he could play. What does that do? Does that help the line? Yes, it does help the line, but the whole right side of the line still has some issues going on, playing some backup. So I really think the Chiefs are going to be able to create pressure, get in the backfield. How is that going to affect Burrow, and what is going to be the game plan that the coaching staff comes up to combat that? How is the Chiefs offense going to look if Mahomes isn't mobile and isn't able to move around?
Because that's a lot of their play calling, right? Yeah. They scheme a lot of things like moving him around, deep stuff. Like it definitely shrinks their playbook quite a bit if he's not Mahomes.
Yeah, if he's not able to do the Mahomes stuff, then you start thinking to yourself, if he can't do that, are you better off rolling out Henny? You know what I mean? Because Henny, it's going to be 1 to 2 looks, boom, that's it. It's going to be a very simple, very, I don't want to say dumbed down, but that's basically what it is.
Yep.
You're not going to be does Henny give you the best chance to win? I don't know. I will say this. I have never really been a Patrick Mahomes guy, but this year I'm kind of starting to be it. And I kind of think the two things that kind of made me be a Mahomes type guy were his actions on the sidelines, wanting to go back in when he's hurt. We've seen all this times how people are looking to go out of games, and he's fighting to stay in there with his coach. I like that. But more importantly, who we haven't seen all this year? We have
his brother and his girlfriend.
His wife and his, you know what I mean?
His wife and his brother. Yeah. The girl and the bro. He kept them quiet.
He told them to get away.
Yep.
So, he's kind of doing the right stuff. I'm starting to come around to him a lot more than I was.
And you know what? This defense, they're we keep talking about the offense too, but since week 8, their defense has allowed just 19.7 points per game. They did not allow much run after the catch from receivers last week. They blew up some of those screen attempts from Jacksonville, which they continue to try to do. The pass rush forced quick early throws. They got home late, 2 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. They had 12 quarterback pressures last week on Lawrence. And Pacheco had a very nice game running the ball. He had a career high in rushing yards over expectation, and he had a career high in percentage of runs that gain more yards than expected. 75% of his runs gained more than expected, and that was all on him. I mean, these are two good football teams, so we're going to have
And I mean,
positives and negatives on both sides, right? It just
it-
is going to come down to the number and like Mahomes' health and the value of this, which it feels like, I mean, I still think that they're a few points short on the Kansas City side because of the Mahomes stuff. Like, I think they're undervalued here.
Yeah, and I mean, like the under, like the thing is, this opened up at like 52. It's all the way down to 47 and a half.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just kind of looking at it like the big thing when Cincinnati kind of made their jump is when DJ Reader came back, because he's the meat of that defensive line. He's able to clog the middle, able to stop the run. If he's able to stop Pacheco, that's going to put more pressure on Mahomes in this passing game. And if he can't do the Mahomes type stuff, what is going to happen? Historically, Kelsey hasn't had his best games against the Bengals, so that's going to put more pressure on Juju Smith-Schuster, Tony. We don't know the situation of Hardman. Is Hardman coming back or not? So there's a lot of different mixes and mixed stuff that could happen. However, I do have one player prop that I absolutely love, and it's actually the only bet so far I've locked into this one, because this one for me, you can't really do anything right now in this game because you don't really know what's going on with, obviously, Patrick Mahomes. Once you know on with him, like if he's going to be a for sure go, this number is going to go in Kansas City's favor. So,
and the only thing I did was I played on the opening last week on Sunday when both of these games open. I played the opening number for both home teams because I thought it was short and might go in their direction positively. Because like you said, if Mahomes isn't going to play, this is going to balloon up the Bengals way. But if Mahomes does play, I think it goes to probably closer to 3.
Yeah,
Kansas City. And then I'm going to feel good about having got basically like I jumped in when Cincinnati was favored by 1.5. So I've got plus money on the Chiefs money line, like on a Chiefs money line plus, which I think that was a good way to do it because I've been pretty confident that he was going to play, and then I can make adjustments based on what I have to do. Like right now, if you're sitting here and if you maybe miss the number shift, because I'll take a little bit of value if I can on Kansas City in this spot, right? Like, now, a couple things to mention on the Bengals side. I love some of the nicknames that we got last week. Snow Burrow and Snow Mixon. I don't know why that just made me laugh hearing those guys be called Snow Burrow and Snow Mixon. This team hasn't lost a game since Halloween either. They're in really nice form. And they've defeated Kansas City and Mahomes the last 3 times they played them, including in last year's AFC Championship game. Now, it is a little tough to use those games as a gauge for this because this game is probably going to include a less than healthy Patrick Mahomes and a banged up Cincinnati offensive line. And last year, we have different rosters. So the game that they played earlier this year is going to look a lot different than this game because Kansas City's not going to have 100% Mahomes, and they're not going to have 100% offensive line on the other side for Cincinnati. Last year in the playoffs, they got sacked 19 times and 7 in the Super Bowl alone by the Rams. And this year, overall, throughout the year, they got sacked 10 fewer times during the regular season because of those upgrades to the offensive line. 3 starting linemen out, yet they still stepped up last week with backups, and they played a very good football game. Those 3 backups, the right tackle, was basically the reason why they lost the Super Bowl last year. He was horrible against the Rams, and the Rams just ate him alive. So he has a great game against Buffalo. What's crazy is so that was the right tackle. The left tackle, he was the guy that got benched last year to put the right tackle in the game. So he was even worse than that guy. And they were both miserable last year. And then you have Sharping, who was cut during the preseason by the Texans. The Texans didn't have room for him on their offensive line.
And
none of these players had any meaningful roles with the Bengals through the first 4 months of the year. Their average Pro Football Focus grade was a 48 out of 100. but they all played great. They gave up 1 sack for 2-yard loss. They ran for 172 yards. That was more than they rushed for in 16 of their 17 prior games this year. It was only the second 100-yard game of the year for Mixon. They opened up some huge holes. They helped average 2.6 rushing yards before contact, which was the most in a game for Mixon since week 14 of 2019. It was a season high allowed for the Buffalo defense as far as yards allowed before contact. And they were the number one team in that metric throughout the year. The number one team, and the Bengals just destroyed them, pushed them right off the line. Now, they did give up 12 pressures, but Joe was doing a fantastic job of just getting the ball out of his hands quickly. So he's just got to make sure that he does that again against this Kansas City team, because Kansas City's defensive front is great. Their coverage isn't fantastic. Man, the Bengals defense, they pressured Josh Allen on 20 out of 47 throws, and they held the Bills to just 3.3 yards per rush. Snow Burrow went 23 of 36 for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns. Should have had a third touchdown. That one to Chase that was overturned, that really shouldn't have been overturned. They put together scoring drives of 9, then 10, then 12 plays. He converted his first 9 passes of the game, 105 yards. He ran, Mixon ran for over the 100. He had 8 first downs and 4 runs of 10 yards or more. He was stuffed only twice all game, was Mixon. I mean, that was just a really good game all over. And you could tell they had a chip on their shoulder because of the way that the league was sort of positioning the games. And they thought that everybody wanted a Bills versus Kansas City neutral field conference championship. Right after the game, when they put a microphone in Burrow's face, that was the first thing he said. Well, you're going to have to refund those tickets to everyone selling that neutral site conference championship games. You could tell they had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I mean, they converted 60% first downs. They held Buffalo to just 4 of 12 on third down. Diggs had only 4 catches for 35 yards. The Bengals outgained Buffalo by over 100 yards on the ground. They held Buffalo to just 63 yards rushing. In a snow game, you got no shot if you're only rushing for 60 yards. They were well prepared, well coached on the defensive side of the ball, and they don't have, like, their defense usually doesn't have the best defensive player out there of either sides, but they're just a really well-balanced team. Every man's accountable for what's asked, small details. Shout out to the Bengals. They won 5 playoff games over the last 2 years. Prior to that, they had won 5 playoff games in their first 53 seasons.
Yep.
It's a different time to be a Bengals fan for our boy Beho, right?
Whole different time. And actually the one bet I've locked in here so far is with the Bengals. I took Tyler Boyd over 30.5 yards receiving. The issue with the Chiefs defense, defending the slot wide receiver, we saw that with the Jags as they targeted Christian Kirk. The last 3 slot wide receivers the Chiefs have played have all gone over this total in that 3-game span. They have averaged 8.3 targets, 7 receptions, 51 yards. Snead is permitting a 70% catch rate when targeted. That is the slot quarterback of the Chiefs. Just looking at Tyler Boyd, he's gone over this total in 2 out of the 3 games against the Chiefs, averaging 5.5 targets, 4 receptions, 48 yards. So I like Tyler Boyd here, especially if they're able to create pressure and get it like some more underneath type stuff going to get the ball out of Burrow's hands quickly. I really think they're going to have to blanket coverage to Jamar Chase. Just looking at the Chiefs defense, this is another reason why I like it. They're 20th DVOA and their 31st DVOA defending wide receiver number ones. McDuffie and Waffle are rookie cornerbacks, and they are going to be the ones guarding Chase. So I really think they're going to do a lot of safety help, safety high stuff to kind of take Chase away and force the Bengals to use Hurst, to use Higgins, to use Boyd, and just Chase 7 for 97 last time. So look, I just think it's going to be a Boyd type game. I'd be interested. The Chiefs backfield is a mystery to me because Allaire could be coming back. You throw Allaire in there. Pacheco can't going running. And Kelsey's already struggled against them. and those other, like maybe some Tony props, just because they seem
Tony is the guy who I'm a little bit intrigued by. I might toss
kinda
him in
get
as our touchdown scorer this year, as this week as like a heavy flyer, and maybe throw a little DFS on him too. Keep in mind, Eric and I will be on the BTV Better Than Vegas network on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time to preview both of these games. So at that point, we'll have all of the up-to-date injury information, any last-minute props. We'll give out first touchdown scores and anytime touchdown scores that we like in that game with me, Eric, and with Kyle. And so we'll have probably a few more things to talk about on Sunday morning than we do right now, Eric. But yeah, you and I will be talking a lot over the next couple days as well, because I think I might come on your show and do a little Pegasus preview. It's a big weekend at Gulfstream Park this weekend. You and I will also be talking about the Santa Anita Pick'em contests this weekend. We'll touch base on that. We might do that Friday or Saturday. Maybe we'll see, because maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do one on Saturday to talk about the Sunday games, because it'll probably be a lot of the Sunday stuff for the football games on Sunday. And and then our focus for on this show, and then on BTV Better Than Vegas, we'll shift over to basketball. We'll start talking some NBA and some college basketball too. So I look forward to making that transition in the next couple weeks. But
I have one more thing to add, though.
Please do. Yeah.
Just kind of looking at it, I was looking at Burrow, and this kind of stood out to me. Second half. So this is second half number. He is 33, 14, and 1 ATS. So, we could kind of look to play Burrow in the second half. It basically evens out. There's basically just percentage points. It doesn't matter if it's a favorite or a dog. And he's 6-0 ATS second half in the playoffs. Wow. Excuse me. So
the guy wins. He's
second half. But, I heard someone else say this. Seeing the success that Burrow is having, seeing the success that Fields is starting to have, seeing the success that Hurts is starting to have. And it kind of tells you, like, the way, like, these top schools, Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, are evaluating the quarterback position is kind of like not the best thing. And you could win at that level as long as you have dudes around him. Eddie O is a great dude, but he's a nightmare of a coach. He is not that good of a coach. I hate to say it. Joe Burrow led that team to a championship. You know what I mean? And, Fields, they went with Jake Fromm at Georgia instead of him. I don't know. They went with Tua over Jalen Hurts, after Tua had that one drive in that championship game. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. Like, you look at it after a couple years and seeing where one player is and the other player was, maybe they made the bad choices back then too. So I don't know. Just something to think about.
Eric, buddy, we appreciate all the hard work throughout the year, and we only have the one big game left to talk about. So next week, we'll have an off week, and we'll see. Maybe you and I will start talking basketball next week, or maybe we'll just shift and wait till after the Super Bowl. But you and I will discuss it coming up in the next few days. And for all of you who want some more help this weekend, come hang out with us and see who we're going to play as our first touchdown scorer this weekend at 11 o'clock a.m. on Sunday at BTV Bets. Make sure to give Eric a follow at ETOF21. Check out all of the great work that he does, his podcast that comes out this weekend. If you give him a follow on social media, you'll be able to see all of the great content, podcast stuff, links to that, links to his show earlier in the week that comes out on Tuesdays, and any videos and individual stuff that Eric has. Great work as always, my man. Look forward to talking to you again the next couple days, and let's end this season on a positive note.
Looking to finish strong, my man. Talk soon.
Thanks so much, folks. And if you're listening on the podcast, we have a ton more coming up. If you're watching on social media, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and go subscribe and download That's What G Said podcast, and you'll get a lot more great content